comments, please call 910-672-1600. Your radio hosts today are
Val
and Ralph Walkie Robertson. And we are proud to serve you today.
Yes, we are. Thanks, Ralph. This is something that you may be interested in since you were a principal and everything. And it's board lets 6th graders play sports. Extracurricular activity policy requiring 2-point grade point average stays in place. 6th grader students in Cumberland County schools will be able to play sports beginning this winter, the school board decided Tuesday. In a separate vote, the board rejected a move to loosen the school system's participation standards for extracurricular activities. The board voted 6-3 to let the 6th graders play sports, including football. Board Chairman Greg West, Vice Chairwoman Donna Van, and board members Alicia Chisholm, Peggy Hall, Rudy Tatum, and Susan Williams voted for the motion. Board members Portia McMillan, Judy Musgrave, and Carrie Sutton opposed. McMillan said she thought the focus should be on academics rather than athletics. This, to me, is not a priority, she said. West said he didn't think academics and athletics had to be mutually exclusive. It's not either or, he said. School officials have said smaller middle schools favor allowing 6th graders to play sports, while the larger schools opposed it. Smaller middle schools said some teams don't have enough players without 6th graders, according to the school officials. Sports also motivates some students, those students say. Larger schools say the 6th grader participation isn't needed and would cause some players to be cut during tryouts. Those students need to focus on transitioning from elementary school, they say. School officials say 73 of 101 school systems in North Carolina let 6th graders play sports in middle school. The board voted 6-3 to defend the proposal under which students who want to participate in extracurricular activities will have to meet the school system's requirement for being promoted to the next grade level. The failed vote means students will continue to need a 2.0 grade point average to take part in activities. West, Hall, and Tatum voted for the change. The other board members voted against it. Sutton said she thought the school system should have high expectations for students. We shouldn't dummy down, she said. We shouldn't even be having this conversation. The other action board members set January 8th as the deadline for applications to be the school system's next superintendent. Advertisement for the position could start this week. So, Ralph?
All right. Stewart named interim Harnett County Manager. Harnett County Commissioners on Tuesday appointed Paula Stewart as the interim county manager. Stewart replaces Joseph Jeffries, who resigned to become town manager of Lillington. She had been the deputy county manager since May 2015 and has been employed by the county since 1995. Previously, she worked at North Carolina State University for 9 years as a budget analyst and applications analyst. We appreciate all Joseph has done to get us where we are today, and we know Paula will continue leading us where we are already started going, said Gordon Springle, chairman of the Board of Commissioners. We're confident Harnett County is going to continue to progress. Jeffries was hired by Harnett County in 2002 as chief planner for the county's planning department. He became director of planning and development services in 2007. He was named county manager in May 2015, following 2 years as deputy manager.
All right, raid on Hope Mills' home yields guns and drugs. Hope Mills gun, cocaine, digital scales, and 6 dogs were seized from a Hope Mill home Monday after drug raid. Agents from the Cumberland County Sheriff's Office, Narcotic Unit, and Special Response Team executed a search warrant at a home on the 49 block of Pelditch Street in Hope Mills. Agents found the seized numerous weapons and bags of suspected cocaine. Zambin Devon Patterson, 34, and Zachary McRae, 26, were each charged with 2 counts of trafficking cocaine and maintaining a vehicle, dwelling, or place for a controlled substance. Patterson also was charged with possession of firearms as a felon. He was convicted in August in Catawba County Superior Court of possession with intent to sell or distribution of cocaine. Bail was set at $115,000 for Patterson and $100,000 for McRae. When agents entered the home, they found Patterson, McRae, and other men who had been charged. A deputy saw Patterson throw a black backpack out the window in the master bedroom where he had been sleeping, according to court records. Agents located the black backpack outside and found it contained a Beretta 92 FS 9mm pistol, a .40 caliber pistol, and a Taurus PT 111G 29mm pistol. One package wrapped with brown packing tape contained a white powder-like substance weighing 960.256 grams and 2 digital scales, according to court documents. Agents searched inside the house and found 6 clear knotted plastic bags containing white powder-like substance on the dining table and common area of the kitchen, according to court documents. The combined weight of the white powder-like substance was 2,114.52 grams, according to court documents. Agents also found a large amount of cash, which was rolled up and bounded by rubber bands in different amounts per bundle, according to court documents. During the search, agents found and seized plastic bags, digital scales, and cutting agents such as creatine, indicating the manufacturing of controlled substance, according to court documents. The narcotic units also found a Westchester 20-gauge shotgun under a bed in the master bedroom where Patterson and another man had been sleeping. Cumberland County Animal Control seized 6 dogs from the home, according to court records. Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a lot.
District 1, Brown Jensen in close race. Curtis L. Brown Sr. was the top vote getter Tuesday night in the primary election for Fayetteville's District 1 seat, narrowly outpacing incumbent Kathy Keith Jensen. The two will face each other in the November 7 general election. The other candidate who appeared on the ballot, Kathy Dickens, withdrew from the race and has moved to another area of the state. Brown received 522 votes, or 48% of the total, while Jensen had 502 votes, or 46%. Brown said he expects a competitive race. He said he plans to keep it as professional as we can, keep it in focus on the topic: crime, jobs, poverty, and economic development. It's time to regroup and get to work, said Jensen, who has served in the city council since 2013. Brown, 60, is the president and CEO of GPAC, a logistics consulting company. He has never held public office but serves as the leader of the Community Watch Program for Greystone Farms, a subdivision off Ramsey Street where he lives. Jensen, 52, owns an Affair to Remember bridal and formal wear. And in District 2, Colleton or Williams will replace DeVere. Dan Colleton and Tyrone Williams were the top two vote getters in the primary election for the City Council's District 2 seat and will face each other in the November 7th general election. Colleton received 430 votes and Williams had 427 to easily outdistance a crowded field of 9 candidates. According to unofficial returns, District 2 covers downtown and part of Haymount, Cedar Falls, Country Club Hills, Utah, Massey Hill, Savoy Heights, and the Toco neighborhoods. Williams, a real estate broker and developer, said he got into the race after his brother Jerry Williams was hit and killed by a vehicle as he was walking home. I've got to make a difference, he said. I can't sit on the back porch anymore. He said his priorities are homelessness, job creation, and economic development. Colleton, a chiropractor and chairman of the Federal Planning Commission, said he would sit down and form a strategy for the last leg of his campaign. Tomorrow is a whole new race, said Colleton, who has lived in Fayetteville for 20 years, the last 4 or 5 on Oak Ridge Avenue in Haymount. His campaign theme has been less crime and homelessness, more jobs and a better quality of life, especially in the poor neighborhoods of his district. Linda L. Miller finished third with 251 votes. Other results were Paul Taylor, 147, Lynn Brown, 113, and of course John Mulvaney, only 17. The District 2 seat opened up when Councilman Kirk DeVere decided to run for mayor. Pedestrian dies after being hit by a vehicle. A pedestrian has died after being hit by a vehicle at 2:33 p.m. Tuesday on the Martin Luther King Jr. Freeway. The man was identified as Jonathan S. Sloan, age 40. According to a release from the Fayetteville Police Department, no help was available. He was treated at Cape Fear Valley Medical Center, where he died from his injuries. The driver of the vehicle was identified as Adriana E. Galloway, 23, of the 6600 block of Brookstone Lane. She was operating a 2004 Ford Explorer. No charges have been filed at this time, and the crash is still under investigation. The crash happened in the northbound lanes at a bridge over train tracks between the Bragg Boulevard interchange and where the MLK ends at Ramsey Street, said Officer Asia Cannon of the Fayetteville Police Department. The driver immediately stopped and called 911 for help. The MLK's northbound lanes at Bragg Boulevard were closed temporarily for a crash investigation. Anyone with any information regarding the crash is asked to call 433-1807 or Crime Stoppers at 483-8477. And as I was driving to Fayetteville State University this morning to read, I almost hit a pedestrian. He was walking in my lane as I came around a curve. So I had to swerve over to keep from hitting him. Of course, if another car had been coming, it would either hit him or hit the other car head on. So, word of advice, pedestrians, don't walk in the street. You're taking your own life in your hands. Not walking in the street is not a very smart thing when you're up against a 3,000-pound vehicle going 45, 50 miles an hour, or in a 55 zone, 55 miles an hour. You don't stand much of a chance. So stay out of the roads. Woman charged with promoting prostitution of a minor. Detectives with the Fayetteville Police Department's Human Trafficking Unit have charged a Fayetteville woman with promotion of prostitution of a minor. Carla Bernice Gainey, 35, of the 600 block of Oak Ridge Avenue, has been arrested and charged with felony promotion of prostitution of a minor and felony conspiracy to commit human trafficking of a minor. The investigation, which began September 16th, involved a 16-year-old victim. Gainey was arrested Monday and taken to Cumberland County Detention Center, where she received a $75,000 secured bond. Anyone who is or has been the victim of human trafficking, or who knows someone who is asked to call the Fayetteville Police Department at 433-1885. Or you can call Crime Stoppers at 483-TIPS.
Okay. Hennis lawyers returned to court. A panel of federal judges indicated they may be unable to force the government to provide additional support to defend of conviction of killer Timothy Hennis, but warned government lawyers that it may be their best interest to solve the issue on their own. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Armed Forces had heard an argument during the short hearing in the case of U.S. versus Hennis on Tuesday, with lawyers from the former Fort Bragg soldiers now on death row repeating arguments that they needed additional resources and personnel for Hennis's appeal, which stemmed from the 2010 court-martial on Fort Bragg. Lawyers for the government rejected the plea for resources and asked that the appeals court do the same. An appeal of judges in Washington heard their case, with at least two of the judges expressing dismay over the state of defense teams representing Hennis, who was convicted in 2010 of killing a mother of two and her children. The case received national attention not only for the crimes, but also the unique way it was played out in court. Following the original crimes in 1985, Hennis was tried 3 times, including twice in civilian court. He was convicted then, won an appeal for a new trial during which he was acquitted of the murders. Years later, the Army calls Hennis back to active duty to face court-martial on Fort Bragg for the crimes. Captain Tim Burgess, the leading lawyer defending Hennis, has stated in a court motion that he does not have the expertise or resources to properly represent Hennis. Capital cases are amongst the most complex, long-lasting, and specialized cases we try in our system, he said. The case of Timothy Hennis is certainly no exception. According to a motion filed in the appeal, Burns represented more than 24 other soldiers in various stages of appeal, has never defended an accused at trial, participated in a murder trial, or prosecuted a case of comparable complexity. Over 5 years, 7 other Army defendant lawyers have represented Hennis, Burris has argued. None have had the experience or resources to represent Hennis, nor were able to review or the entire record of trial, and none have been assigned longer than 2 years. Government lawyers have rejected past requests for more money to hire additional lawyers and other resources. In Washington, Captain Samuel Landers repeats their argument that it was up to defense leaders, not the government itself, to decide how money is spent in the case. Judge Margaret A. Ryan warned Landers that government needs to take the claims seriously and note that their response to Hennis' motion was signed by 4 lawyers. This is not a game, Ryan said. Ryan note there are standards for counsel in death penalty cases in most states that require learned counsel. There are also American Bar Association standards and revised standards in military courts that will take effect next year. She said the appeals court may have their hands tied in forcing the government to provide additional resources, but cautions that defense lawyers were building a case to show Hennis is receiving insufficient support from his defense team. You're playing a very dangerous game, Ryan said, after chanting government lawyers for not taking the issue seriously. You can win the battle and lose the war, she said. The concerns of appealing are raising at this point about standards. They don't go away. The fact we can't do anything now doesn't make this whole thing go away. Another judge said the government was playing a morbid game of chicken in regards to the case. The hearing and request for additional funds are part of the mandatory review of Hennis's conviction on 3 counts of premeditable murder for the deaths of Katie Eastburn and 2 of her daughters, 5-year-old Cara and 3-year-old Era, at the Summerhill Road home off Yakin Road. A 3rd child, 22-month-old Jan, was found alive. The Eastburns murders drew national attention and were the focus of several television specials, a book, and a mystery. At the time of the killing, Kathleen Eastburn's husband, Gary, was in Air Force and training in Alabama. Hennis, who had adopted a dog from the Eastburn family shortly before their deaths, quickly became suspect. He was convicted in Cumberland County Superior Court and put on death row in 1986, but won an appeal and was found not guilty in a new trial in Wilmington in 1989. Hennis resumed his Army career, retiring in 2004. 2 years later, the Army brought Hennis, a master sergeant, out of retirement to face a court-martial on the charges after DNA evidence not available at the early trial linked him to the murders. A military judge sentenced Hennis to death for the crimes. He was also stripped of his rank and forced to forfeit his pay and allowances. Hennis is incarcerated in the U.S. Army Disciplinary Barracks at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. Burris also asked the court to force the government to provide a specialist and fact investigator for appeal. Landis argued that Hennis's our lawyers has not shown the need for these resources, and the court did not immediately rule on the motion.
Interesting.
Let's see. It's time.
This is the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service, a United Way partner agency. We broadcast from the campus of Fayetteville State University, and our signal is carried by WUNC Chapel Hill. As a nonprofit agency, we rely on public donations. We request your support to continue our services. When making charitable donations, please keep the SENCRRS in mind. Our post office box number is 35029, Fayetteville, North Carolina, 28303. If you have any questions or comments, please call at 910-672-1600. Your radio hosts today are Ralph Walkie Robertson
and filling in for Ms. Woodard is Raquel Adams.
And Raquel Adams. We are proud to serve you today. And it is now time for a reading of the obituaries. I'd like to dedicate the reading of the obituaries to my dearly departed mom, Virginia Brantley Robertson, and to Drew Rotani, who was a volunteer here at the Radio Reading Service and recruited me into the reading service. And of course to Harold F. Rickman, who founded the Radio Reading Service here at Fayetteville State University back in 1984. So we're indebted to Mr. Rickman. Death notices. The following deaths have been reported. See upcoming editions of the Fayetteville Observer for complete obituary information. In Cumberland County, David Joseph Manning, 66 of Fayetteville, Colvin Funeral Home and Crematory. Ella Mae Gibbs, 68 of Charlotte, formerly of Fayetteville, Rogers and Breese Funeral Home. Columbus Stewart, 88 of Fayetteville, Wiseman Mortuary. Cape Fear Region, Katrina McGraw, 49 of Whiteville. S&L Funeral Home in Fair Bluff. Katrina Dorothy Jones, 47 of Fayetteville, formerly of Rayford. Tina E. Bridges, 37 of St. Paul's, formerly of Patterson, New Jersey, McCoy and Sons Mortuary. Jimmy McCullough, 70 of Clinton, Worley Funeral Home, Clinton. Larry Jackson, 56 of Chadbourne, S&L Funeral Home in Fair Bluff. Funerals today: Gloria Dean McBride, 78 of Fayetteville, 1 p.m., Patrick Baptist Church. Burial, Mount Olivet United Methodist Church Cemetery. Miller's Rivers Calder Funeral Home. Sparkman, Helen Sparkman, 88 of Elizabethtown, 3 p.m., Wesley's Chapel United Methodist Church, Bladen Gaskins Funeral Home, Elizabethtown. Alexander, retired PSGT Clifton of Fayetteville, 12 p.m., Herring Funeral Care Chapel. Burial, Sandhill State Veterans Cemetery, Herring Funeral Home. Cannon, Wilma Cannon, 86 of Fayetteville, 3 p.m., Rogers and Breese Funeral Home. Burial, Lafayette Memorial Park Cemetery, Rogers and Breese Funeral Home. Alfred Edward Marlowe, 88 of Fayetteville, 11 a.m., Graveside Lafayette Memorial Park, Jernigan Warren Funeral Home. Morrison Germain, that's Jermaine Morrison of Fayetteville, 3 p.m., Fayetteville Family Worship Center, Herring Funeral Home. Nancy Lassane, 56 of Hope Mills, 1 p.m., Wiseman Mortuary Chapel, Wiseman Mortuary. Linda L. Rapley, Mrs. Linda F. Rapley, age 70 of Fayetteville, passed away Thursday, September 14th, under the care of her family in hospice in Hayes, Virginia. A memorial service to honor her life will be held Saturday, October 21st at 3 p.m. at Haymont Methodist Church in Fayetteville. The family will receive friends from 1:45 to 2:45 p.m. prior to the service. Pastor Francis Daniel officiating. Grace Ann Simmons. Mrs. Grace Ann Simmons, 84 of Fayetteville, passed away on Friday, October the 6th. Mrs. Simmons was an avid golfer. The family will receive friends from 6 to 8 p.m. tonight, Wednesday, October 11th, in Rogers and Breeze Funeral Home. A funeral service will be held at 11 a.m. Thursday, October 12th, in Rogers and Breeze Funeral Home Chapel with Chaplain Roy Hill officiating. Burial will follow in Lafayette Memorial Park. Service is entrusted to Rogers and Breeze Funeral Home. Joseph Dodds, retired Air Force. Retired Army Master Sergeant Joseph Dodds, 81, formerly of Spring Lake, passed away in his residence in Raleigh on Sunday, October 8th. He was a Vietnam veteran. Funeral services will be held on Saturday, October 14th at 1 p.m. at Adcock Funeral Home Chapel, with the Reverend Orazim Hooks officiating. Burial with military honors will be held at the later date at Sand Hill State Veteran Cemetery on Fort Bragg, North Carolina. A visitation for family and friends will be held on Friday, October 13th from 7 to 9 p.m. at Adcock Funeral Home in Spring Lake. Jason R. Tyner. Jason Ray Tyner, 40 of Grace Creek, passed away on Tuesday, October 3rd. He was preceded by death by his father, Danny Ray Tyner. There will be a memorial service on Saturday, October 14th at 1 p.m. at Cape Fear Baptist Church, Butler Nursery Road, Fayetteville, with a visitation with the family following the service at the church. Retired Sergeant Major Daniel Ray Powers, 69, of Fayetteville, died Friday, October 6th. Funeral Friday, 11 a.m. JFK Chapel, Fort Bragg. Visitation, Rogers and Breeze Funeral Home, Thursday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Burial, Cumberland Memorial Garden Cemetery. Rogers and Breeze Funeral Home. Lonnie N. Hooks. Lonnie N. Hooks, 80, of Fayetteville, died Wednesday, October 4th. Funeral Thursday, 11 a.m. Wiseman Mortuary Chapel. Viewing at the funeral home, Thursday, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Burial Friday, 10 a.m. Sand Hill State Veteran Cemetery, Wiseman Mortuary. David Thomas Dwyer. David Thomas Dwyer, 74, of Fayetteville, died Friday, October the 6th. Funeral Friday, 12:15 p.m. St. Anne's Catholic Church. Visitation, St. Anne's Catholic Church, Friday, 11 a.m. to noon, Rogers and Breeze Funeral Home. Danny Smokey Leon Ewing. Danny Smokey Leon Ewing, 71, of Cameron, died Tuesday, October 3rd. Funeral Sunday at 4 p.m. Home of family member, Adcock Funeral Home and Cremations. Luther Thompson, 87, of Roland, died Thursday, October 5th. Funeral Thursday, 2 p.m. New Hope United Methodist Church in Roland. Viewing S&L Funeral Home in Maxton, Wednesday, 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. Burial Cedar Grove Cemetery in Roland. S&L Funeral Home in Maxton. Mazzelle Baggett Blue. Mazzelle Baggett Blue, 85, of Godwin, died Saturday, October 7th. Funeral Thursday, 1 p.m. Elizabeth Missionary Baptist Church, Octrville. Viewing Dafford Funeral Home, Dunn, Wednesday, 2 p.m. 7 p.m. Burial Church Cemetery, Dafford Funeral Home. Reverend Amos Bryant. Reverend Amos Bryant, 70, of Red Springs, died Sunday, October 8th. Funeral Thursday, 2 p.m. Richard Bowles Funeral Service Chapel. Visitation following the service at Graveside. Henry Lee Judd. Henry Lee Judd, 71, of Rayford, died Monday, October 9th. Memorial Thursday, 11 a.m. Bowie Funeral Home, Rayford. Burial, no burial, Bowie Funeral Home.
Felton A. Smith. On October 6, 2017, 7:25 a.m., Felton Smith transitioned into the arms of Jesus at Durham VA Medical Center. Homegoing celebration for Felton Smith will be held Thursday, October 12, 2017 at 2 p.m. Wiseman Mortuary Chapel, 431 Cumberland Street, Fayetteville, North Carolina. Public viewing will be 10 to 2, day of the service. Gloria Dean McBride entered heaven's pearly gates on October 9, 2017. Dean accepted Christ at an early age and has been a time member at Southview Baptist Church in Hope Mills, North Carolina. Services will be held at 1 p.m. Thursday, October 12th at the Patrick Baptist Church in Patrick, South Carolina, and followed immediately by burial at the Mount Olive Methodist Church Cemetery in the Huntsville area of Chesterfield, South Carolina. Helen E. Lashley passed away on Saturday, October 7, 2017. The family requests, in lieu of flowers, donations be made to a local animal shelter. Barbara Ann Copeland, 85, of Fayetteville, died Sunday, October 8, 2017. Memorial service will be Saturday at 11 a.m. Pinecrest Funeral and Cremation Services of Hope Mills. Edwin G. Ostendorf, 84, Fayetteville, died Monday, October 9, 2017. Funeral will be on Saturday at 11 a.m. at Jernigan Warren Chapel. Visitation will be at Jernigan Warren Saturday, 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. Burial will be at the Lafayette Memorial Park, Jernigan Warren Funeral Home. Joseph Wilson, 63, of Fayetteville, died Thursday, October 5, 2017. Funeral will be on Thursday at 11 a.m. Cunningham and Sons Mortuary. Visitation will be at Cunningham and Sons Mortuary Wednesday, 1 p.m. through 7 p.m. Cunningham's and Sons Mortuary. Savannah Claire Pruitt, Little Miss Savannah Claire Pruitt, infant, earned her angel wings on Sunday, October 1st, 2017. No services are planned at this time. Services is entrusted to Rogers and Brees Funeral Home. William Barfield Simdy passed away on Wednesday, October 5th, 2017. A private celebration of life will be held at a later date. And L.C.N. Gamerdinger, 71, of Littleton, died Friday, October 6, 2017. A private family service will be held at a later date at O'Quinn P. Spogue Phillips Funeral Home and Crematory, Littleton. Billy Graham, pray for young people to turn Christ as society becomes more secular. Question. I read a newspaper report recently saying that young people today aren't really interested in God or the church. Is this true in your experience? Why is this happening, Mrs. NC? Answer. Some recent polls do seem to indicate that young people are less involved in churches than previous generations. Some young people, in fact, indicate they have no religious beliefs or are only vaguely religious. In spite of this, we have found that large numbers of young people today are open to the gospel and they have a hunger to know God in a personal way. They have seen the emptiness and hopelessness of life without God, and they sense in their hearts and minds that there must be something more to life, and that something is God. In your own ministry, we have seen large numbers of young people across the world come to Christ in recent years, not only through the public preaching of the gospel, but through the internet. The Bible's promise is still true, for the Word of God is alive and active. At the same time, it's true that society is becoming more and more secular. Moral and spiritual values that used to undergird our society are being eroded, and tragically, many people, both young and old, go through life without ever thinking about God or eternity. Like ancient Israel, we're in danger of becoming morally bankrupt. Everyone did as they saw fit. Can this be reversed. It happened to ancient Israel, and it can happen to us as we face our need for God and turn to Jesus Christ in repentance and faith. Pray for the young people you know and ask God to help you point them to Jesus Christ, who alone can turn their darkness into light. Readers can write to the Reverend Billy Graham at the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association, 1 Billy Graham Parkway, Charlotte, North Carolina 28201, or call 877-2-GRAHAM. The website for the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association is at billygraham.org.tribune Media Services.
Racy text from coworker calls man's wife concerned. Dear Abby, my husband, Ralph, and I have been married for 30 years. He recently started receiving sexually oriented texts from a male coworker. I'll call Mike. What Ralph once read aloud to me saying he's such a goof, listen to this, has now become covert reading for him. Ralph and I have no secrets. Our phones are accessible to each other, so sometimes if his phone is lying around, I'll see things such as sitting on the deck with just a towel on the bits and pieces. Nice breeze. With heart eye emojis. They are later deleted. I have asked Ralph if he had feelings for Mike, which he denies, but he won't ask him to stop. Ralph knows this worries me and has me questioning our relationship. I'm tempted to contact Mike, but I'm not sure if that's the best way to proceed. Your thoughts? Dear Baffled. Your husband may not have feelings for his co-worker, but his co-worker appears to have some for him. Either way, Mike's behavior is unusual. While I don't think you should contact him, this is something you should revisit with your husband because you find it threatening. Dear Abby, a man came to my home today to fix a tech problem and proceeded to hit on me. Abby, he is at least 10 years older than me. I'm 23, and it was so unprofessional. I was home alone, and being faced with that situation caused me to turn red. He then commented on my blushing, and I just sat there saying nothing. I am berating myself for not speaking up, and I'm disgusted that he assumed I was blushing because I liked the attention when it was the opposite. At the same time, I am fearful of a man reacting aggressively if I were to say something. I was hoping you could tell me what to say or do in order to better handle these situations in the future. I want to be more vocal, I just don't know how to be. Blushing in Texas. Dear Blushing, whether you were red with embarrassment or pale with anger is irrelevant. You should report him to his employer. A way to protect yourself in the future might be to have someone else present under those circumstances. If someone behaves inappropriately during a service call to your home, you're within your rights to tell that person you want him to leave immediately. Dear Abby, I went to the movies with a couple of friends. At the concession stand, I bought popcorn. They didn't. However, as we sat down, they eyed my popcorn as I was munching. I didn't offer them any. I figured they could have bought their own. Should I have? Was I selfish? Dear Muncher, the polite thing to do would have been to offer them some. As to whether or not doing so was selfish, the answer is, I'd say it was more clearly, but my mouth is full. Ha ha ha.
Horoscope by Stella Wilder. Born today, you are continually addressing your own life, the lives of others, and the world in which you live in terms of quality, not quantity. You seem to have the big picture squarely in mind. You are able to see the overall significance of events and developments and shift your thinking accordingly without sacrificing your own beliefs or ideals. You approach everything with a rare kind of energy. Libra. Anything you do behind someone's back is likely to come back to haunt you later, and possibly as soon as tomorrow. Scorpio. You've been working on a plan that has proved stubborn, but today there are likely to be signs that it's starting to come together. Sagittarius. You must be willing to share if you don't want to find yourself overrun with those who can take from you what you want to keep. Capricorn. Security is a concern today at home and at the workplace. Intellectual property is what you want to protect right now. Aquarius. What you're after may elude you for much of the day, but this may be only fun and games on someone else's part. Pisces. You've been taking things just a bit too seriously lately. Lighten up and laugh, at yourself especially. A smile goes a long way. Aries. You can do much to make sure others are comfortable with that you ask them to do. Someone may not understand the instructions. Taurus. You may rub someone the wrong way without knowing it, but you'll know something has happened when tensions rise. Gemini. Be careful someone else isn't allowed to brush past you and cross the finish line first. This is a victory you've long sought. Cancer. You may be adding strain to a new relationship by trying to hide something that will be much better shared. Leo. You're likely to fall into a trap of your own making today, but fortunately, a loved one is able to free you in the nick of time. And Virgo. Things may become quite dramatic today as you attempt to do the impossible with others looking over your shoulder.
Very interesting. Police seek prisoner who escaped from the hospital. Local law enforcement still looking for a prisoner who escaped from First Health Moore Regional Hospital in Pinehurst, where he was receiving treatment on Monday. The prisoner is identified as Vinton Nation, 28, and he escaped at 9:15 p.m. Monday, according to authorities. He was wearing black jeans and a hospital gown and was still handcuffed. On Tuesday, lawmen were combing the area near the hospital. At its Facebook page, the Southern Pines Police Department said Nation was released from the hospital without injury. Upon reaching the exterior of the hospital while handcuffed, he fled on foot from officers. At the time of this information release, Vinton Nation has not been apprehended. Nation's last known address was on South Hardin Street in Southern Pines. Nation is not believed to be a threat to the public, but law enforcement advises that anyone who sees him not approach him and call 911. Nation was in custody for 2 outstanding warrants, one for credit card fraud and the second one for failing to appear in court.
Aberdeen man charged in armed robbery. Detectives with the Hope County Sheriff's Office have charged an Aberdeen man with an armed robbery that was reported last Wednesday. Carson Anthony Johnson, 27, of the 300 block of Kaiser Street, was charged Monday with robbery with a dangerous weapon, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit robbery, and possession of a firearm by a felon, according to a news release. Deputies responded to a report of an armed robbery Wednesday at the 5-Star Food Mart located at 1559 US 15501 in Aberdeen, the release said. Johnson, who was identified as a suspect in the robbery, is under a $1 million secure bond, the release said. The case is still under investigation and more arrests are expected, the release said. Beth Hudson.
Engel will give presentation on Jane Austen. Dr. Elliot Engel makes her 40th appearance at Cumberland County Public Library on 3 p.m. October 22nd at Headquarters Library. Engel will talk about the first great woman writer in English, Jane Austen, as he singles out the multiple perfections within her novels, which define her as one of the most enduring British writers. A visit to Engel's website turned up a number of interesting facts about Engel and his approach to research. For example, every word of his program originates in his laborious library research, which can take from 6 to 18 months to prepare. Key word there is library. It also reveals that he has the gift of unearthing little-known facts, which you will quickly learn when hearing his presentation. It's likely that most will also agree that the combination of his pervasive humor and his contagious enthusiasm make for an attention-grabbing theme. Many of his fans have said that if he had been their English college professor, they would have paid far more attention in class and be more knowledgeable in literary subjects today. If you are deciding whether to join us, here's a review of what we hope you will consider. With each spoken word, Dr. Elliot Engel brings literature and history to life. He is not only an academic, he is an artist. For those unfamiliar with his work, do yourself a favor and get a few CDs. You will learn a lot, and you will laugh a lot. And when you get to parties, you will seem a lot smarter than you actually are. God knows it worked for me. That's from Stephen Chbosky, author of The Perks of Being a Wallflower, screenwriter of the motion picture Rent, and co-creator of the CBS television series Jericho. Tickets for Eagles program go on sale before the program at 2 p.m., $10 for general public, $5 for friends of the library members, and $2 for students. In honor of Eagles' 40th anniversary, light refreshments will be served after the program.
Tillerson is toast. So is U.S. diplomacy. Trudy Rubin. Rex Tillerson is toast. The Secretary of State, repeatedly humiliated and undercut by President Donald Trump, is clearly on his way to a Brexit, probably by year's end. World leaders know he doesn't speak for the president, which reduces his credibility to zero. And Trump would never forgive him for calling the president a moron at a national security meeting. But Tillerson's downfall signifies something far more dangerous than the latest tick in the You're Fired Trump reality show. It reflects the collapse of U.S. diplomacy under a president who thinks he can resolve global crises by bluster and threats. In other words, under Trump, diplomacy itself has become toast. This leaves only bad options for dealing with North Korea or Iran. Tillerson brought a fair share of his troubles on himself by adopting Trump's disdain for the institutions of the State Department, including a dissemination of its budget and personnel. Critical positions in ambassadorships remain unfilled, leaving the administration hard-pressed to implement key policies in Asia or the Mideast if such policies exist. Moreover, it was painful to watch the former ExxonMobil chief embarrass himself last week in an extraordinary press conference in which he insisted he hadn't threatened to resign. In order to keep his job, he lavished words of praise on Trump that sounded as if they'd been dictated by the White House. One can only assume Defense Secretary James Mattis begged Tillerson not to quit in the face of looming challenges on North Korea and Iran in the upcoming Trump trip to China in November. Yet Tillerson can be of little use when the president refuses to grasp that diplomacy isn't about being nice in Trump's scornful words, but rather about achieving U.S. goals without having to resort to force. Over and over, the president has contradicted Tillerson's diplomatic efforts in words or tweets, the latest episode being the most telling. After key meetings in Beijing several days ago, where he was pressing the Chinese to further tighten economic sanctions on North Korea, the secretary told reporters he was exploring lines of communication. Upon hearing that news, Trump immediately tweeted, "I told Rex Tillerson he is wasting his time trying to negotiate with Little Rocket Man. Save your energy, Rex. We'll do what has to be done." That astonishing public put-down reveals Trump's utter incomprehension of the options he faces with North Korea. Sanctions alone would not force to denuclearize, nor will Trump's fire and fury threats. The only purpose of harsher sanctions is to force Kim Jong-un to the bargaining table with the goal of containing his nuclear program. At minimum, Washington needs a serious back-channel means of communicating, something Tillerson apparently was exploring, so each side understands the other's intent. Trump, however, appears eager to reduce the U.S. options on North Korea to two: more presidential insults and threats, with the risk that this provokes a paranoid Kim into making a dangerous military mistake, or starting a massive, hugely destructive war. On Iran, Trump's detestation for diplomacy is equally dangerous. Every 90 days, U.S. law requires the president to affirmatively certify whether Tehran is living up to the terms of the 2015 nuclear accord, which mothballed Iran's nuclear program for at least 10 to 15 years. Trump, who has reportedly denounced the deal, will reportedly deny that certification by October 15th, the next deadline. Never mind that UN inspectors along with the other parties to deal, including our European allies, Russia and China, all say Tehran is basically adhering to the deal. So does Mattis. The decertification will not by itself blow up the Iran Accord, but will toss over to Congress a decision on whether to restore sanctions on Iran. If sanctions are reinstated, Iran will be free to restart work on a bomb. The United States will be blamed for the deal's failure, and our European allies say they won't reimpose sanctions. We could be headed for another nuclear crisis, just as Trump whips up the rhetorical war with Pyongyang. So there is good reason why Tillerson Mathis and Joint Chiefs Chairman Joe Dunford all said the deal should be saved. Asked last week in Senate hearings whether he thought U.S. national security required remaining in the agreement, Mathis said, "I do. There are indeed problems with Iran's behavior in the Mideast and with its testing of missiles. No one is happy with the sunset clause that lets key provisions of the deal expire in 10 to 15 years. The way to approach these flaws is to organize a broad coalition that presses Iran to negotiate follow on accords that add to the nuclear deal. Our European allies are eager to join in this tough but not possible effort. But choosing that path requires a president who has the patience for diplomacy and understands that it requires time and skill in building coalitions beyond the scenes. Trump, on the other hand, thinks diplomacy is for sissies and is open to ripping up the Iran deal, which practically guarantees that there won't be a future deal with North Korea. Even if Tillerson stayed in place, it's unclear that he can encounter his boss's deepest instincts. Nor is it clear that any successor to Tillerson can convince Trump that diplomacy had value. After Tillerson's press conference, Senator Bob Corker, chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, said that Tillerson, Mathis, and Chief of Staff John Kelly were those people that helped separate the country from chaos. That troika looks to be depleted soon. Who knows how long the other two will last. Trudy Rubin is a columnist and editorial board member for the Philadelphia Inquirer. Readers may write to her at Philadelphia Inquirer, P.O. Box 8263, Philadelphia, PA 19101, or by email at trubin@phillynews.com.
He's in D.C. Yeah. All right, see you there.
Cheers and jeers. Cheers to Reginald Watson, owner of Affordable Computers. I called on Thursday, and he was at my home on Friday to resolve my computer and printer problems. His customer service was above and beyond, and he was very honest regarding my problem and did not try to overcharge or sell me something I did not need. It's obvious why he has been in business for 27 years. Thank you, Jeff Simmons, Fayetteville. Manning finds a sympathetic crowd by Jocelyn Novak, the Associated Press. New York. She may have been disinvited by Harvard and turned away from Canada, but Chelsea Manning earned applause, laughter, and even some tears of empathy from a friendly crowd at the annual New Yorker Festival. Manning, who was released in May after 7 years in military prison, was by turns impassioned, defensive, humorous, and occasionally tearful in a penned discussion Sunday with New Yorker writer Larissa McFarquhar. She became emotional when asked about what she thought the best result had been of her leaking of hundreds of thousands of classified documents to WikiLeaks. "Look, I haven't had time to deal with these questions," she said. "All I've been doing is fighting for my life for the last 7 years." The 29-year-old transgender woman was known as Bradley Manning when she was convicted and sentenced to 35 years in prison. In his last days in office, President Barack Obama commuted the rest of her sentence. Manning has made only a few appearances since her release. Last month, Harvard University reversed the decision to name her visiting fellow after CIA Director Mike Pompeo scrapped a planned appearance over the designation, calling Manning an American traitor. And Manning tweeted 2 weeks later that she'd been denied entry into Canada because of her U.S. criminal record. While some see her as a traitor, others see her as a hero for exposing truths of war. One audience questionnaire cried as she referred to what many had been through, just the unbelievable price that you had to pay. At times, Manning told McFarquhar she was legally unable to get into certain details, and when asked how she would advise other expiring leakers to proceed, she said simply that everyone needed to make their own decisions. But she responded forcefully when asked whether she'd been afraid that her disclosures would hurt people by exposing the names of informants. She insisted the material included no such sensitive information. These aren't intelligence documents, she said. It's historical data. There's nothing sensitive in there. There's no troop movement, she's added. It was a historical record of everything that had happened in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Put crime and violence into context. Lately, violent crime and murders have become a concern in Fayetteville, as they have in many urban places in America. The violent crime spike in some cities is alarming. There are 762 murders in Chicago last year, and they are on track to do it worse this year. But that doesn't tell the whole story. According to the police department, the city has also had 4,331 shooting victims. Wow. 4,331 shooting victims. As I stated from the outset, we have our problems too. Some of us don't feel safe anymore, especially at night. I'm still trying to make sense of some recent drug deals gone bad, resulting in deaths and injuries by firearms in public places around town. I am familiar with open-air drug dealing on neighborhood street corners, but I'm more disturbed that some of these criminals are bold enough to use public parking lots to hook up and conduct business in places where there are high pedestrian and vehicular traffic. Naturally, these places, innocent and unassuming bystanders are at significant risk. One might think that using public areas to deal drugs would increase the chances of getting caught by police or someone snitching on you. But perhaps I am reading this wrong, or maybe I just don't understand. The police can't fix violent crime by themselves, and it would be unfair to hold them to the kind of standard. It's unrealistic to think that a more significant police presence, more aggressive law enforcement tactics, and harsher criminal penalties alone will solve our problems without programs and strategies that address the root of the problem. Violence is more than a matter of law or order. Some African Americans believe that when politicians and police say they are going to get tough on crime, what they mean is they are prepared to get tough on black people. Without a doubt, the so-called war on drugs was a war on black communities. I often wonder how many African Americans would be in prison on drug charges if America had treated the crack cocaine epidemic targeting blacks the same way it's handling the present heroin epidemic targeting whites. Although it doesn't make sense to me, it is understandable why white Americans might assume black folks aren't as concerned about crime as the rest of the world. The reality is they are, primarily because they are more likely to be the victims of crimes. Moreover, African Americans are skeptical that black offenders will be treated fairly regardless of their guilt or innocence. Simply put, whites believe the criminal justice system is colorblind, while black people believe it is color-struck. If there is any accusation of police brutality or in some question police shootings, a frequent response is, why don't black address black-on-black crime first? Why are we talking about the police shooting young black men when there are more young black men killing each other? The preponderance of black murders are committed by black men. There's no argument, and we should all be concerned about that statistic. However, the discussion ought to occur in the proper context. If you are going to discuss the number of blacks killed by blacks, is it fair to consider the number of whites killed by whites? According to the FBI's uniform crime data from the 2016, about 90% of black victims of homicide were killed by other blacks, while 83% of whites were killed by other whites. There's no surprise here. Most victims of crimes personally know their assailants. In this context, if we're going to talk about black-on-black crime, let's talk talk about white on white crime too. In a given year, 98% of black men don't commit violent crimes. African Americans are and have been having these discussions for decades. Fayetteville community activists Lois Moses, Sarah Wright, and Moses Mathis conducted Stop the Violence rallies and anti-drug marches on Branson Street in Savoy Heights and in Tiffany Pines in the late 1980s and early 1990s. Mathis is more recognizable as the bicycle man, who gave away thousands of bicycles to needy children at Christmas. All three of these tireless community leaders are no longer with us, but their legacies will continue. And there are still a lot of other positive things going on. Sometimes it's the little things that makes the difference. I saw Fayetteville's new police chief, Gina Hawkins, interacting with some citizens at a function recently, and she did one of those little things. Parents were bringing their children up to meet her, and when she talked to the children, she would squat to make eye contact with them at their level. Sometimes you have to reach people where they are to win their confidence and trust, not just the children. Troy Williams is a legal analyst and criminal defense investigator. He is a WIDU radio co-host on Thursdays from 11 a.m. to noon. He can be reached at talktotroywilliams@yahoo.com.
Bonnie trial features NYC's video cam sweep by Tom Hayes and Colleen Long, the Associated Press. New York. There's one video of a man walking to and from the scene of a bombing in a Manhattan's bustling Chelsea neighborhood. Another shows him minutes later planting another homemade explosive a few blocks away. A third has him in a backyard in New Jersey, apparently testing an incendiary device. Prosecutors say the person captured on these incriminating videos is Ahmad Han Rahimi. The trove of digital evidence in Rahimi's ongoing federal trial is meant to provide airtight proof he was behind a 2016 attack that injured 30 people, but it also dramatically demonstrates the omnipresence of security cameras. The Rahimi case relies on video from security cameras in storefronts and businesses all over New Jersey and New York. Assistant U.S. Attorney Sean Crowley said in opening statements, "You'll see video of the defendant in every stage of the attack, inspired by the Ring of Steel counter-terrorism surveillance measures in London. The New York Police Department has led the security video push in the last decade by blanking the city with 13,000 of its own cameras with access to an even higher number of private cameras. Many of the NYPD cameras provide live feeds that can be monitored at command centers around the city, and the department has experimented with analytic software designed to alert police to unattended bags or to someone fitting the description of a suspect. In the past, civil liberties groups have complained that the cameras are an invasion of privacy and pushed for protocols limiting how police use them. But over time, their proliferation has changed perceptions. What we know is that there is no longer or never was legally any expectation of privacy on public thoroughfare," said John DiCarlo of the Center for Advanced Policing at the University of New Haven. "We all know that we're being recorded. Experts say the deterrence impact of the cameras is limited because criminals tend to ignore them, making them mostly an investigative tool for solving crimes. When a bomber planted a homemade bomb on a train in London in September, for example, closed-circuit TV footage provided vital clues that helped police arrest him within one day. In the Middle Eastern Emirate of the Abu Dhabi, where security cameras are ubiquitous, police in 2014 were able to use video footage to track a woman who stabbed an American schoolteacher to death in an upscale mall. An arrest was made within 48 hours. Challenges for the police, particularly in ongoing cases, include sifting through tens of thousands of images quickly enough to find suspects before they're attacked again. Another possible pitfall is in the often poor quality of many of the videos."
District 3, Waddell Wright advance. Voters in Fayetteville's District 3 selected Tisha S. Waddell and Jeremy D. Wright to advance in November's general election. Waddell, a conflict resolution coach, and Wright, executive director of As One Fellowship Incorporated, are new to politics. District 3 is an open seat on the City Council, as its current representative, Mayor Pro Tem Mitch Colvin, is running for mayor. Waddell was the top finisher with 926 votes, or nearly 50%. According to complete but unofficial results, she said she was grateful to voters and looked forward to continuing her campaign. Wright earned 545 votes, or about 29%. Trailing behind were Mike Dobbs with 256 votes and Melissa D. Allen with 144 votes. District 3 includes North Central Fayetteville, a minority district that starts west of Ramsey Street on both sides of Country Club Drive and stretches west and slightly north past Fort Bragg Boulevard and the All-American Freeway. Waddell said it's critical to continue to provide a voice for residents of the district, especially for the incumbent councilman advances in the mayor race. Wright said his goal has been to make politics about people. Because the district is largely residential, he said his top priorities are to ensure public safety and produce better jobs for residents.
Second BCT commander, ISIS so-called caliphate is crumbling, by Drew Brooks, military editor. When Iraqi forces and their partners from the 2nd Brigade Combat Team, 82nd Airborne Division arrived in western Mosul earlier this year, they found an enemy that had been preparing for them. The Islamic State was clinging to Iraq's second largest city, said Colonel J. Patrick Work, the commander of the 2nd Brigade. They had prepared the defenses for almost 2 years. It was a defense that any army would have had a hard time penetrating, he said. Obstacles were placed around the city meant to stop or slow the advancing of Iraqi troops. There was an extensive network of car bombs and massive amounts of mortar and artillery firepower, enough that ISIS could fire at least 200 rounds a day. At times, ISIS fighters used low-grade chemical weapons, attacking military and civilian targets indiscriminately. Work speaking less than a month after the 2nd Brigade returned from the Middle East said that ISIS was no easy target, even as their territory in Mosul shrank. Nimble and centralized command and control allowed ISIS to move quickly. The enemy adapted quickly to Iraqi tactics. Work said the Iraqi soldiers and their American advisors adapted with them. When ISIS launched small drones to drop grenades on Iraqi positions, the Iraqis adopted better camouflage and began watching for the machines. Eventually, Iraqi and U.S. troops began knocking down the drones before they could do any damage, then began sending the drones and their payloads back to ISIS fighters or using them to trace the locations of ISIS control centers. Iraqi security forces became very adept at returning drones so we could exploit them. Work said, we would strike control centers with their own weapons. Even ISIS' barrage of mortar and artillery fire began to work against them. As ISIS fighters targeted military and civilian targets, they constantly moved around the battlefield. The coalition and Iraqi troops were able to track patterns in how ISIS fighters moved, allowing coalition forces to strike with precision fires or allowing Iraqi forces to overrun the attackers. As ISIS shifted techniques, Work said the coalition and Iraqi partners had to adapt quickly. There is a constant interplay of thinking, he said. The enemy can never outfight us. He can only outthink us if we allow them. Over 2nd Brigade's 9-month deployment to Iraq, Syria, and Kuwait, Work said soldiers were constantly trying to anticipate and outthink ISIS. We've dominated them together, he said. 2,100 deployed. On Tuesday, Work looked back on a deployment that involved 2,100 paratroopers from his brigade, roughly half the unit, and the advances made in the fight against ISIS. The 2nd Brigade deployed in late December and began advising and assisting Iraqi partners in January. partnering in the liberation of Mosul and Tal Afar in Nine-Wall province before returning to Fort Bragg in September. Our sole purpose was to help the government, Iraq's security forces, dominate our common enemy, the so-called Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. Work said, our partners' success was our success. We're extraordinarily proud of our partners for having established a security framework that has allowed 250,000 Iraqi citizens to return to their homes in Mosul. Mosul was more than just a city to ISIS, Work said. It was a linchpin of the group's claim to its own nation, torn from parts of Iraq and Syria in 2014. ISIS does not want to be insurgency. It does not want to be a terrorist network, the colonel said. It wants to be a country, but that so-called caliphate is in shambles. Since losing Mosul, the cities of Tal Afar, Shawqat, and Hawaji have been liberated in short order. It's falling apart, Work said. Iraqi forces and coalition partners in both Iraq and Syria are ripping ISIS apart, he said. But what's more devastating to the idea of ISIS is that East Mosul, liberated earlier this year, is thriving. East Mosul has a new normalcy to it that offends ISIS, and there is nothing ISIS can do about it, Work said. Backed by the international community, he said Iraq was pulling itself back together. It was an extraordinary privilege to serve with the mighty international coalition aligned against ISIS, a brutal enemy not just for the region but for our world community. Work said, our highly trained, disciplined, and fit team of advisors, logisticians, and intelligence and fire specialists provided our best military advice to senior Iraqi generals. However, once they made their decisions, we assisted them with their operations. Work said the fight is and has always been Iraqis. They assume most of the risk in the fight against ISIS. We helped them fight ISIS, but they closed on ISIS in the cities. They took the ground from ISIS, and they rescued their own people from ISIS cruelty, he said. Our experience was defined by Iraqis liberating Iraqis. ISIS days numbered. Work said there are clear signs that ISIS days are numbered. While the battle for Mosul took months, more recent battles against the Islamic State have taken days. Mosul, which at one time was the crown jewel of ISIS' so-called caliphate, took a massive amount of resources in an effort to defend, Work said. And during the latter part of the battle, ISIS was simultaneously defending its capital of Raqqa. The loss of Mosul was catastrophic for ISIS, Work said, and it exhausted their army. They're in tatters, he said. It is clearly circling the drain. With coalition fighters gaining momentum in Raqqa, Work said it's safe to assume that ISIS will never be the same again. This is a monstrous setback, not just for this want-to-be state, but for this idea, he said. Work said ISIS was founded on an intoxicated narrative that promised martyrdom for its followers. In Mosul, women served as suicide bombers, and the elderly and crippled fought to the death. But now, many ISIS fighters are fleeing the battlefield together. Others are surrendering en masse to Iraqi forces. More than its physical army or its so-called caliphate, the idea of ISIS is now under intense fire from within, Work said. I do believe these defections, these surrenders, those who just run away, those who are all signs that the idea is dying from within, he said. Under ISIS, the people of northern Iraq endured physical hardship, sexual predation, and psychological trauma, Work said. ISIS exposed countless innocent people to extraordinary violence, sex slavery, starvation, and a brutal brand of Salafist justice. Still, a great deal of daily work remains, Work said. The government of Iraq will continue to pursue ISIS, and the coalition will continue to change directions as quickly and as often as necessary to enable the Iraqis' operations against our common enemy. In Iraq, ISIS is in its death throes, and our coalition is looking for indicators that ISIS may be able to reconstitute its fighting power. If they see these signals, we know they'll attack and help the Iraqis attack. Military editor Drew Brooks can be reached at dbrooks@FayettevilleObserver.com or 910-486-3567.
All right, you know what time it is?
No, sir.
It's food ad time. Let's read some food ads. Okay, let's look at Aldi. We got fresh St. Louis pork spare ribs for $1.99 a pound. Available Wednesday, October the 11th. Available while quantities last. So you better run on down to Aldi's and get that fresh St. Louis pork spare ribs. Fresh, organic, grass-fed, family pack ground beef, $85.15, $17.96 per 4-pound package. Available Wednesday, August 11th at $4.49 a pound. $4.49 a pound, folks. That's a steal of a deal. How about fresh family pack chicken drumsticks, 5-pound average weight, 79 cents a pound. North Carolina pumpkins, $2.99. Now these are North Carolina, not South Carolina. And North Carolina pumpkins are only $2.99. Pineapples, $1.49 each. Michigan Honeycrisp apples, $2.99. Caramel apples, $1.49 per 3-pack. Ooh, boy, those are good. I'd like to run over there and get a pack of those, 3-pack. What about Washington organic pears for $2.99? Blackberries, $1.49 per 6-ounce package. Organic tomatoes on the vine, $2.49 per pound. Can't beat that. All this at Aldi's.
And then at Food Lion, we have with your MVP card is a hot sale, $7.99 a pound for boneless ribeye steak. For 99 cents a pound, also with your MVP card, is a Food Lion chicken drumsticks or thighs. For $3.99 each is Talenti Gelato. Sweet Tango or Honeycrisp apples is $1.79 a pound with your MVP card. 2 for $1 is cucumbers. Without the MVP card, it's 59 cents each. Friendly's ice cream is 2 for $5. Nabisco Oreo cookies is 2 for $5 as well. 3 for $9 is 12-pack of the 12-ounce cans of Coke products. $12.99 each is a Bud Miller or Coors 12-ounce bottle cans, 18-pack. 2 for $6 is Simply Orange Juice. $6.99 each is Arm & Hammer laundry detergent. $2.99 each with the MVP card is Frito-Lay party-size chips. $5.99 each is the 8-piece mixed chicken or 2 for $4 Food Lion deli salads. $6.99 a pound is Food Lion roast beef. 2 for $4 are mini crullers, gems, or donut holes tubs. $2.99 each is Loft House or no bake cookies. $3.99 is a 8 inches pies. For 64 cents, you can get Food Lion brown gravy mix. For $4.99 each, you can get a Sea Cuisine almond crusted flounder, which is 10 ounces. For $4.99 each is a Land O'Frost sub kits. Oscar Mayer basic Lunchables are 5 for $5 with your MVP card. $1.49 a pound is Food Lion bone-in chicken breast. $6.99 a pound is a Taste of Inspirations turkey breast. Without your MVP card, it's $7.99 a pound. For 89 cents each, you can get a 32-ounce Gatorade. For $3.99 each is a 24-pack of Dasani water. For $2.99 each is a 10-pack 6-ounce Minute Maid 100% or 8-pack Honest Kids juice, select varieties. Starbucks and Frappuccinos are $2.79 each. You can get $1.99 each Tide Simply laundry detergent, or for $1.49 is Dixie plates or bowls.
This concludes our broadcast of the Fayetteville Observer. Your radio hosts have been
Raquel Adams
and Ralph Walkie Robertson. Tune in this afternoon at 2 p.m. for articles from the Hope Mills Sandspur and the Fort Bragg Light. At 4 p.m. you can listen to Off the Bookshelf. Today's Fayetteville Observer will be rebroadcast tonight at 9 p.m. We will now join the Raleigh Network for additional programming. Thank you for tuning us in. We've enjoyed being with you this morning. Have a wonderful day.
Yes,
Shh.